Hello, my friends. It's Friday, which means it's one of my favorite days of the week, which means that I'm talking to one of my super awesome celebrities. And yes, everybody that I meet is a celebrity in my world. But this one is extra special because this is my friend, Dr. Brian, who I was trying to remember when I first met you. And it was way back in the day when I still had my yoga studio
hmm
and you were still a chiropractor. So, do you remember when it was?
I want to say it was probably 2003 or 4.
Wow.
Is that sounding right
I
to
think
you?
it's longer, but I don't I have to be completely honest. I'd have to go
Yeah.
back in my calendar because I've been I closed the yoga studio 5 years ago
hmm
and I had the yoga studio for almost 10 years.
Yeah, I know. I started practice 2002, and that group that we were members in, I joined that in 2003. So
Oh,
it
so was
probably
it
was 3 or 4.
right? So that's
Yeah.
quite a long time
I was
that we've
driving down the road and I saw your studio and I pulled my car over and I went in
that's so funny.
and introduced myself. And that was, yeah, like almost 20 years ago,
And we can
almost.
name the unnamed thing. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like
It
branding or
was
anything.
almost 20 years ago now.
I
So
know.
yeah, B and I. I said, have you
BNI.
heard of B and I? And you said, what does that stand for? Big and important? And I said, well, maybe.
Yes, I did
And
say that.
that
Oh my
was
gosh.
Heather. Yeah.
Just having some fun. That's what I was doing.
hmm
And just before we started, we were talking about we're both on our third careers.
hmm
So, like I went from accountant to massage therapist, health and wellness to coaching, and you can give yours. I already know the story, but you tell everybody.
Yeah. So started off, I did a Bachelor of Commerce in Marketing in Memorial University out on the
Which
East
one?
Coast. Memorial in
Memorial.
Newfoundland. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And graduated and started working right away in an advertising agency in St. John's. And I loved it. It was like a plum job to get. We were all vying for this, great marketing job. All the Newfoundland tourism ads that you've seen in the last couple of decades have all come out of that agency.
Awesome.
And we had won that account the month that I started. So it was a pretty exciting time. But the burnout was real. It was a lot of work, a lot of overnights, 7 days a week. And after a number of years, I just realized, wow, this is not for me. It's
You can
great, but
only
it's
do
not
that
for
when you're
me.
in your 20s, really.
Exactly. And I think I was 28. You're right. I was 28. And my younger brother was a chiropractor. I had introduced him to it a few years before. He basically came with me to my chiropractic visit. I said, this is really cool. Come with me to my next appointment. Maybe you could do this. He was doing a biology degree. And he used to call me from chiropractic college once he got in and said, quit your job, go back to school, become a chiropractor. This would be great for you.
Right.
And so I did. And I moved to Toronto in 98, graduated 2002, and yeah, opened my own practice at Young and Bloor in downtown Toronto.
I will
And
say he was right. I know you've stepped away from it, but you were my chiropractor for a really long time and you were really good at what you
thank you.
did.
Yeah, it's a pleasure working with people like you. And it was fun working with people like you because, the conversations were always inspiring. There was always laughter with Heather in the room and always a great question. You always had great questions for us. Yeah, but then 2014, I blew my wrist out. I
I
injured my
remember.
wrist. Yeah, so that was kind of what to do. I thought I would take a month off and it would heal, and that didn't quite happen. So I hired a doctor to work alongside me to do the actual adjusting. But I kept going in because I loved being there. Like I would go in, so you'd get two of us for the price of one. We'd both been in the office with you.
It
So
was
Heather,
really a good deal for a while.
it was.
Two for the price of one.
Yeah, you had. I was doing the conversation and the diagnosing, and then Dr. Alex or Dr. Brian, depending on the day, were doing the adjustments. And I was traveling around a lot, trying to get this wrist finalized and stabilized, and it didn't seem to work. So eventually, after 5 years of trying to figure it out, I decided, okay, time to look at career 3.
I know, right?
I guess I was turning 50 that year. And I've been studying mindfulness and practicing it since, I guess, 2014, the same year of the wrist. And then, so yeah, I'm now in the third career doing mindfulness training, a lot of corporate work, and still working with people, which is what Heather and I are meant to do. We're meant to work with people.
It's interesting that we both went from the corporate world into
Mm-hmm.
a very physical wellness space, like being a massage therapist, being a chiropractor. Those are both pretty physical jobs. And
Yeah.
even a broken finger would stop me from being able to work, right? It's like you think about jobs and what could you tolerate? But there's very little physical ailments that you can tolerate when you have one of those manual type careers. And then we both went into this, variation on a theme, coaching people on how to find it's almost like how to find their headspace, how to find their grounding. Um, what would you call what we do if you were going to give it a name?
Well, I would say, like, I'm a mindfulness coach or a mindfulness teacher.
They're
Uh,
just titles, I know, but
they're titles. But just going, Heather, I don't think I really made that beautiful connection that we have had these parallels,
we just been walking next to each other,
right?
arm in arm.
And I climb onto your massage table, or you'd climb onto my chiropractic table after having our previous careers. I didn't really make that connection that we have really paralleled what we're
Yeah.
doing with people. And it's nice that we just keep finding ways to connect and work with people. So, yeah, I guess what we do is we help people have more contentment in their lives because people are aching for it. People are really struggling. There's a lot going on. There's a lack of resilience. And I don't know if you've seen that,
Oh my gosh.
um,
Yeah.
and especially in the last few years, right?
Yeah. I think the last 2 years almost made the underlying, the kind of the simmering of discontent, or the simmering of this inability to find our space, kind of boil over. It's
Yeah.
just like you had no choice but to sit and look at what was going on, because you weren't allowed to do anything that you were used to using to distract yourself. And if you weren't used to spending that time, it could be really hard for people. And I recognize that. I mean, I've been meditating for 20 years, I think. I've had a regular practice. My head just blew off. But it's true. I had a friend once who every time I went out with him, and this was when I lived out in Halifax, every time I went out with him, he had a different girlfriend.
Hmm.
And I said to him, why don't you just stay single for a while? And, I mean, we would go out all the time. We were just hanging out. He said, I don't like being alone. I don't like being alone with myself. And that was really, I felt really sad for him. And I think I've talked about him in an older podcast, but it was kind of like, but who else are you going to spend your whole life with? you know?
Yeah.
And if you are that kind of person where you've never sat quietly with yourself, and when you have to, the voices are going to come out. Doesn't mean you're crazy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what to do with it, you can't stop them. So I can see people having a hard time if
Yeah.
they
I
were
mean,
forced into it.
yeah, I think people had certain coping mechanisms, functional or not, that were there for a long time. And whether it's, me relying on you for water cooler chat to kind of debrief on my personal life, well, that's gone.
Yeah.
It's maybe my relationship at home isn't the best, but I get away at work and I work with people like you, and that balances out life, and that's okay. That's not my situation, but
I
and
know.
then and then all of a
That's
sudden,
awesome.
it's awesome. But then all of a sudden, when that's gone and you're left in silence, there was some research done, and it was male and female, and I think it was at Harvard, and they asked the people, they said, "Listen, I'm going to put you in a room, and the only thing in that room is a desk, a chair, and a small device that will shock you, give you an electrical shock. Not going to, really harm you, but it will give you a shock." And people, said, "Oh, I will pay money not to have a shock. I said, okay, just go sit in that room by yourself with your thoughts for 15 minutes. That's all they were. That's all you were
I
asked to
think I
do.
saw that study.
And 25% of the females and 66% of the males couldn't last 15 minutes without like just sitting by their own selves. They actually were so distracted and nervous and not okay sitting alone. They started playing with the shocking machine. One guy shocked himself over 100 times in the 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
We're just not okay sitting quietly. We don't have those skills. We need distractions. We need our phones. We think we need our phones and our laptops. And yeah, so that's what we're trying to work with mindfulness and meditation, is work on those skills.
And it is so funny that it's 15 minutes is actually not very long, right? And I think about when I saw my my brain. I always go in like a million directions at once, and I have to pick which road to go down. But I saw this cartoon once. It was like a meme where this person was talking to their friend and saying, I saw this guy sitting in the coffee shop today. He was so weird. He was just sitting there drinking coffee.
True.
So now I do that just to see if anybody thinks I'm weird for not looking at my phone. But when I had you and I went for lunch after I had my stroke, and when I would never want someone to be forced into it. I mean, COVID is one way to force people to be alone, but they still had their internet, they still had their devices.
Yes.
But when I was in the hospital, because I need glasses to see my little screen, I couldn't see my screen because I couldn't put on my glasses, and no one was allowed to visit me. So for effectively 4 days, except for the nurses coming in every few hours to check my vitals, I was alone in a cubicle in the dark, and I couldn't do anything. But you know what? I was okay.
Because you have those skills. You have a 20-year practice. You know what to do with that. You know how to bring curiosity into it, or how to bring calm into it. Most people don't.
And
we're seeing
what I've
that.
also found interesting was at the beginning of it, I was resisting it. So even with all of my skills, in quotation marks, I was resisting it. But I was resisting it because I think my brain was saying, I don't get sick. I'm Heather. I'm super healthy. As I was just telling you earlier, my neurologist says, you're super healthy for a woman your age. Little tag on the end. But at some point, I just realized that I was being ridiculous. It was sometime in the first, 12 hours. I said, why are you acting like this? Why are you trying to have them send you home? You've had an incident. Just accept it and accept their wanting to make sure that you stay healthy, and be grateful that, oh my God, you can go to the hospital and people will look after you. So I did, my mantra for the rest of that 4 days I was there was surrender, but don't give up. So I just sat quietly. I did some breath things. I thought about things. That was how I came up with finally getting off my butt and running my program
Really?
Yeah. So, what 4 days of sitting quietly will do for you is you have time and energy to sort out your thoughts. And I just said, wow, why am I sitting on this program that my 6 is called Back to Me for people, which is also the name of the podcast. All roads lead back to me. No, that comes from another coach that I know. I finally just said, what's keeping me from just standing up and saying, I have this for you. It will help you. And I couldn't come up with an answer as I sat there quietly. So I said, okay, time to launch. Right? Because even I know a coach who, from the outside, is a very successful, confident coach. And we were having a conversation on Wednesday of she still has imposter syndrome. I'm like, wow, never had any idea.
Yeah, that's super common.
Yeah.
But Heather, you just brought up a few really great points. I love the whole thing. Yeah, I know. So pick a point and go with it. I want to talk about suffering. You mentioned something that was really good there. And I want to talk about the whole concept of sitting there and deciding, like, I'm just going to let this kind of happen. I'm going to surrender to it. And we talk a lot about the concept of equanimity. So equanimity, basically, you let things.
The prayer at the end of every yoga class I teach is
Oh, really?
the equanimity prayer. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear how they define it, because what we say, or what I say, and Unified Mindfulness says, it's basically just letting things come and go without push or pull. Like, it's not, being apathetic, it's not being indifferent, but it's just learning how to let things come and go. And that's what we teach a lot of the skills in the training that I do, is letting things come and go without push or pull. Because if you think about, linking to the other point, suffering comes from resistance.
Wanting
Like,
something else.
wanting something else, and also resisting what is sometimes. And we often resist and resist and resist, and that's what suffers. I had, in the first month of COVID, I had a recurrence of a pretty serious heart infection that I had many, many years ago. I had it back in like 95, pericarditis. So the
That's
sac,
painful.
yeah, the sac around the heart was inflamed. And so every time the heart beat, it was rubbing against this inflamed tissue. And so it was the first days of COVID. It was April, I guess, of 2020. And, we were afraid to do anything.
I
And
know.
I was certainly afraid to leave the house and go to a hospital, because at that point, the hospitals were, we were terrified.
They're overrun with sick people.
Yeah. So I sat there, I moved myself into the guest room because I could be just more control of the environment. And I was able to use my practice to really just kind of calm myself down, because I knew what it was. I knew that eventually it would give me endomethacin and it would all work out. But I was able to find this quiet in between the heartbeats. The heart would beat, pain, relax, beat, pain, then it would relax. I was able to focus on that and just let that sit in the background and have equanimity. I'm just, I can't fight it. I can't change it. I'm just going to kind of ride it out, get curious about it. And then after a couple of days, we were checking the hospitals, and some inside people said, "Oh, definitely go to this hospital. There's no lineups at all." And I
Right.
went, and there was one person there, and I got treated. But had I not had those skills, like yourself, if you hadn't had those skills of 20 years of meditation practice, those first hours in the hospital, or the full days you had in the hospitals, probably would have been really traumatic and just filled with so much stress. And is that going to help you heal? The adrenaline or
No.
cortisol pumps? No way.
And I spent 3 days in the ER
Yeah.
because there was no beds in the hospital, and it was
Mm-hmm.
Halloween. It was a downtown Toronto hospital at Halloween.
Yeah.
Whoa, the things that I saw.
Yes, I bet.
Now, some of them made me laugh out loud, but it is a stressful environment to be in, because it's never dark and it's never quiet, and you're
Mm-hmm.
really tired. But yogic sleep is fabulous, by the way.
Yogic sleep?
Yes, yoga nidra. So
Yeah.
I just recite it to myself. Like, I don't have to hear it out loud. I'll just recite it to myself, and then I'll go into that state. And if you guys don't know what it is, hit us up. We'll tell you what it is. And then I'm calm.
Yeah.
And I've started using, I won't say it right because I don't speak the language, Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of that? Did I say it wrong? Totally wrong? It's
I
from
don't know.
It's Hawaiian. I think it's Ho'oponopono, something like
Yeah,
that.
I'm not even sure what that is.
So when I wake up at night, because often part of the people that I talk to is they're not sleeping.
Right.
And oh my gosh, it's so hard to find your equanimity, your calm state when you're fatigued. You're just that much more
Yeah.
taxed. So part of for a lot of people I talk to is they wake up and their brain turns on, starts doing things. I need to do this. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do this. So, and that can happen to me now and again. So when I wake up, I don't give my brain a chance. I do this Ho'oponopono practice. And the order doesn't necessarily matter from what I understand, but basically you say, thank you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I love you. So
Okay.
what I do is I go through each body part. So I start at my toes. I thank all my toes collectively. I don't thank them one at a time, but you do you. And if I get, sometimes because I have chronic kind of things that I deal with. So when I get to a spot like my SI joint, Brian knows it super well.
Mm-hmm.
I give it a few extras, but I go through each body part. And by the time I get to my waist, I'm asleep.
Yeah.
But it's like that practice of accepting, thank you for whatever you do for me. I'm sorry that I've mistreated you. I forgive you for annoying me. I love you anyway. So each part.
So kind of like a loving kindness practice,
It is
or
very much a loving kindness
we would
practice.
call it a nurture positive practice.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, with nurture positive, loving kindness, they would line up quite well. And so there's all kinds of benefits to that. So Heather, while you're doing that, I guess while you're thanking your big toe for being your big toe and forgiving your big toe and apologizing for wearing those stilettos at some point in the
I
past,
know. Oh,
if
those high heels.
are you going through them kind of, you're not lingering too long in each part?
I
Because
don't linger.
yeah,
I
that's
just
the
like
trick.
you do, and it becomes almost like that repetitive mantra, like you're just kind of cycling. It's like I say the 4 things to myself and I move to the next part. The only lingering is if, like I have a bit of arthritis in one knee, so I might give it 2
Right. But
because
you,
I want it to be really happy.
but is it more about the process of seeing it versus getting into the story of it? Because getting the
Oh,
story
yeah.
of it gets you down the rabbit hole, and then you're lost in thought again. You're not in that moment.
And yeah, I never actually thought about it, that I don't get into the whats or whys of why it's there. I mean, I already know the story and I don't need to tell it to myself again,
Yeah, yeah,
right? But I guess
yeah.
do people do, like, it is true. If you think about people who have not moved past something in their lives and they just keep replaying it, since your brain doesn't know the difference, you just keep living it over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's that rumination factor, right? That my company is called Lumen Mindfulness. If Lumen, bringing light. I love all that. I also, the second runner-up name would have been Hourglass.
Oh,
And the hourglass, you can picture, wide at the top, narrow neck, wide at the bottom. And the sand at the top, basically, that's the future. That hasn't happened yet. The sand at the bottom, well, that's happened, that's over, that's past. But that's where most of us have our brains, right? At the top
totally.
or the bottom of the hourglass, where they're worried about the future, planning for the future. Of course, you have to plan at points, but if you're constantly worrying about future events that you probably have very little control over, that's not good. And if you're also ruminating on the sand that's gone past and you're trying to relive those conversations and change the past, I know I should have said this, and why did he say that? Well, then again, you're also ramping up the adrenaline, the cortisol, the norepinephrine, and you're not appreciating that the narrow neck of the hourglass. That's the now, and that's where you can get some calm while not ruminating on the past or the future. So it's
Right.
a big skill to get there, though, for a lot of people. I appreciate that.
And you're not, even when you've done work on it, you're not immune to it.
Of
So,
course, yeah,
like I will still on occasion catch myself stressing about something that may or may not happen, right? It's like there you can hear people say it all the time, worrying is like praying for something to happen and something in the future to happen instead of just letting the future come as it will. And living in the past means you don't get to enjoy your present.
hmm
But you reminded me with this hourglass image. So Brad is also awesome. And I
Brad is
remember
awesome.
Brad is awesome. And I remember him telling me a story. This was when he first, I think, discovered the yoga world and he went off to do a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. I might get it wrong. Brad, if you watch it, don't correct me. Just go with it. Um, and he's in this van and he's facing sideways, right? So he's looking forward out the windshield at the jungle coming, whipping towards him. And he's looking at the back, seeing the jungle whipping away. And he's thinking, wow, these people are driving fast. He goes, why am I looking here and here? I should just look out the window at where I am.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you are brilliant. You're a different kind of cat, Brad. I'm going to have to hang out with you more. But it is true. We forget to pay attention to what's going on because we want something different. So we look forward or we look back.
Yeah. And that's exhausting. And
So
it's the
exhausting.
skills that we don't have to figure out, okay, well, we talked about earlier, who can sit quietly with their current situation.
I
And
find it interesting that most
yeah,
of the men there were more men, like more than half of the men couldn't.
66% versus 25% of the women were able to sit there quietly. Just 15 minutes. I mean, that's not a long, but if I think about friends of mine who don't have a meditation or mindfulness practice, there's probably not a lot of time in their week or their month when they would just simply sit, especially now with the technology we have available to us. So we're like, no, I need to be more productive. I need to be more efficient. I can answer 17 emails in that amount of time.
Well, I can answer all these emails while I sit on the toilet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or meanwhile, so one of the things I love doing with the practice is getting people out walking in parks and practicing some of the techniques we teach. Or like I said, it doesn't need to be a park. It can just be your walk to work. And people will try and they'll say, you know what? Like, I didn't realize that the sun, if I leave the house at 7:15 a.m., the sun bounces off that building and completely illuminates my face. Or I didn't realize there was like 17 elm trees on my way to work. Or, they just miss it because they're walking to work on autopilot. We live in autopilot. We're not thinking about what's happening. We're lost in past or future
Well, how
and
often do you see
missing it.
people without headphones in?
Mm-hmm.
So when I will admit that when I first moved to Toronto, I would put headphones in, but I wouldn't play anything. It would just because I didn't want anybody crazy to talk to me
Okay.
because I wasn't used to the big city. Now I'm one of the crazy people, apparently. But yeah, but now I've had people, and I catch myself because I'll listen to podcasts as I walk. People will stop me for directions. I'm like, I can't hear you. I have to take an earbud out because I've tuned out. If I'm listening to a podcast, I've effectively tuned out what's going on around me. And it
And
is
that's
interesting.
okay. You can do that certainly. But if it's that's how you're living your life, you may
Yeah.
be missing some beautiful moments. That's all.
Well, when I realized what was going on, now when I walk to work,
Mm-hmm.
I walk to work looking around. When I walk home from work, I listen to a podcast because
I
I'm
love
tired.
that. I love that. That's great. It's like a little treat for yourself as well. You can reward yourself for the awareness and the alertness you have in the morning with checking out a bit on the way home. That's awesome. That's a great
And you
idea.
get a little wake up every now and then. So I can remember one day I was listening to something, and maybe this is why I did it. I was listening to something and my battery died or something went wrong. And I had just turned down the alley. Do you know where Karma Co-op is?
Mm-hmm.
I had just turned down the alley to the Karma Co-op, which is co-op grocery store. Shout out to Karma Co-op. and it's in an alleyway, and everything had died. So I just took it out, and it was so quiet in that alleyway that it kind of took me aback for a moment, because there's lots of traffic and noise and things in Toronto. And when you walk into somewhere and it becomes quiet, it's like, wow, it's really quiet here. So it just gave me that pause of like, wow, I haven't noticed quiet in a while. And I was like, I like this. I want more of this. I want
Good.
more quiet.
Yeah, and you can find quiet in different places. It's hard to find quiet in bigger cities. I get that. I'm
But you
sitting here.
can.
You can, and part of it is, getting out into nature if that's available to you. But then you can also start doing it I'm sitting right now in my office, and there are noises on the street. There's someone else in my home. I can hear but I can actually define my space as this area, these four walls, and I can appreciate that there's quiet here, and have a moment of rest and a moment of appreciating, I'm in a quiet space, even though Toronto is not quiet. When I first moved here from Newfoundland, I was overwhelmed by all the simulation. I was like, please, I need somewhere to go that's quiet. And I remember it
Right.
was Mother's Day, and I was living at Bayview in Eglinton. So I went to Mount Pleasant Cemetery. I said, I'll just go walk in the cemetery. That will be quiet. Well, it was Mother's Day, and it was the noisiest place because people weren't visiting. Like, you just couldn't get quiet because I was trying to find absolute quiet. But you can find relative quiet if you can just say, okay, so in the 3 feet around me, for that 4 seconds there was quiet, and appreciate that, and learn from that.
Well, and there is a practice where you draw your awareness inwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of those meditation practices I can remember teaching is you're listening because I can hear the birds outside my window because it's never actually quiet in nature, friends. Being someone who camps in Georgian Bay, it's never actually quiet. But and then you just draw your senses inward, inward, inward into the space that you're in,
Right.
and and you can find quiet that way, or just go into. I actually go to the sensory deprivation tank once a month because, but it's funny. It's actually not quiet in there. It's quiet.
There's a gentle hum occasionally. Yeah, like maybe
I
the
can
the filter
where
might come on or something. Yeah.
I do the one down on Queen Street, and I can feel the rumble of the streetcar as it goes by. But it's interesting that you're a little heightened. Like, I don't mind the occasional something just to remind me that I am actually still on planet Earth. I'm not floating in outer space. But that's one of my treats to me is
Nice.
an hour a month. And it's interesting. I have some friends who say it would freak them out.
Yeah.
But if they can't spend 15 minutes sitting in a chair, how could they spend an hour floating?
Yeah. Um, you brought a good point about going inward with the quiet. Yeah, and we kind of separate things out in the way we teach it. We have see, hear, and feel. Those are the three main sensory categories or channels. And so you can hear out the environment. You can also hear in, and that's like your thoughts. And you can actually appreciate if you can get to that point where your thoughts, it could be quiet inside, and that can be a restful moment. You can see out in the environment, like I'm seeing the street right now, and there's a bus, and there's some kids walking down the street. But I can also see in, like on that mental screen, and that may be blank for a while, and that can be restful. And then also you can feel your physical body, like butt against the chair, my back against the chair, my feet on the ground, the temperature in the room. But then you also can feel emotions. Shinzen Young, he's the founder or the initial gentleman who came up with unified mindfulness. He always says you can feel a broken leg, you can feel a broken heart. They both have feelings to them. And so learning how to differentiate them all is one of the skills that we teach. Again, see, hear, and feel, inner and outer, and deciding like, okay, well, today I want to place my concentration just on what's going on inside my head. Or I'm in an incredible park and there's all the birds are out and I want to focus on that right now. So you focus on hear out. There's lots of opportunities. So you decide where you place your concentration. And people often are just playing ping pong balls in their heads, right? They're not able to do that.
Well, I did hear that now our attention span was shorter than a goldfish. So,
Really?
really,
Okay.
now goldfish are winning. Yeah, if you can't, I mean, we think that our brains are in charge of us, but we're supposed to be in charge of it. And we call it practice on purpose because
Mm-hmm.
no one has ever shown you that you don't have to be a slave to your ping pong ball bouncing around in your mind. And it's interesting that you talk about the inner vision, the outer vision. When when I'm teaching yoga, when I do the opening and we're just getting ourselves grounded before yoga, I say, turn on your inner eyeballs and have a look around and see what's going on. Because we're out, everything's out, 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 out. And sometimes you don't even notice. You're like, oh, my leg hurts. I didn't even notice that was hurting. Why is my leg hurting? And not that I need you to go down the rabbit hole of why your leg hurts, but at least have an awareness of something before you start going into your yoga practice.
But Heather, you must have saw that as well in practice. I know I did as well. Patients would come in and I would say, okay, it's great that you're here. What's going on? And they're like, I'm hurting. Well, where? Just somewhere below my neck. They had
Right.
just that sensory clarity wasn't there. They weren't sure. I'm like, is it sharp or aching? No, I'm not really sure. Is it, getting faster? Is it slowing down? Is it ramping up? What's the intensity like? And people just didn't have the awareness of themselves. And I'm sure on the massage table as well. And people go, whoa, what the heck is that you just found? Because they're
All the
not,
time.
yeah, right. And I think that goes back to that lack of sensory clarity that we as a society have. We've lost it because we're so outward focused on all the stimulation that we forget to take the time and the skill. It takes time to learn how to do these things, to learn like what is going on in me and around me.
And I think people will lose patience. And
Mm.
this is true of all adult learning for the most part, is you think you should be good at something the first time you do it.
Yeah.
because come on, I know how to do stuff. So obviously I should just get this right off the bat. And you don't give yourself we always use that example of when you give a little kid a hard time because they didn't learn to walk the first time they stood up.
Hmm.
So, but we are very hard on ourselves. And I think that's sad, really.
I think a lot of times we're looking to be on the court at Wimbledon. We want to have achieved that. When in
Right.
fact, every time you step on the practice court, play a game of tennis, that's life. Like that's being alive. Like in a mindfulness point, that's practicing mindfulness. If you're on the court, it's not something that you're going to get to and have, and that you'll never to practice again. But I think a lot of us want that silver bullet. We want that golden pill or whatever it is that will give us that thing. And it's not that. It's the
I had a
practice of it.
client
Oh,
ask me that once,
yeah.
when I worked downtown in the corporate district, a woman came to see me. She was having terrible headaches, some of the worst upper back tension because she was working in a stressful job. And she said, "Can't you just give me a pill?" I said, "No,
Yeah.
no, I
How's
can't."
how's that working for you?
Yeah. And I had another gentleman who worked on the trading floor who kept his phone where he could see it in the face cradle while I was massaging him because he was still working while he was getting his massage. And he asked me, of course, I'm very upfront. Like, I'm kind, but I'm going to tell you the truth. He said, "Why is this so sore?" I said, "Look at this thing that you're doing. Like, why are you working when you're supposed to be resting?"
Hmm.
And he came back a few months later and he had quit his job.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I don't think it was me who did it, but it's just like, buddy, this thing's killing you. Like, get out of it. Maybe he hit that 27, 28 age, realized you can't do this. That's 28, 27 was, no, I was older than that when I left corporate. Anyway, I was
Yeah,
thinking
but
age of 27.
yeah, but I do think people, as a society, we learn how to strive and we compare ourselves to social media is really bad for this, comparing ourselves to people who, we're just seeing that curated glimpse of their life when in fact I think that's their everyday. And we all know this is nothing new.
We know
But
intellectually,
yeah, but then it's like, do you know it here or do you know it here in the heart?
right?
And I think a lot of us get it, but then we fall back into the trap. And so it goes back to that thing. You got to get back on the tennis court every day in practice in order to see long-term changes happening over time. I started a new class just this past week.
I was going to ask you about your classes.
Yeah,
You,
I just
you read my mind.
yeah, and I had one of the students asked pretty much like on the first class out of curiosity, but like wanted the end results, like needed it right away. I'm like, oh,
How long
I've
is
been
this going to take, Brian? By
yeah,
the
and I'm
way, how
like,
long is this going to take?
mm-hmm. And I smile because I appreciate the frustration that a lot of us have in life. That I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to do something about it, and will it be fast? No, it's not fast. But if you kind of the analogy I think I gave to him is like, okay, look, we stood right now with our backs against Lake Ontario at the foot of Yonge Street here in Toronto, and your plan was to walk straight up Yonge Street. Yeah, eventually you would hit Newmarket, I guess. But I said, hey, if you make some small changes today and just veer off course like 4 degrees, you won't hit Newmarket. You're going to hit Peterborough, and that's a
Right?
completely different thing. So small changes, stick with it over time, will get you to a new place. The quick fixes, they never work. You've got to stick with it.
And you can see it in almost every industry. The overnight success is this will happen instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the diet industry too, because it's
Yeah.
very notorious for it. If you follow up afterwards, it doesn't actually help the person change anything for the better. It's just like an immediate quick hit, and then they fall back. Because change, I heard an analogy about changing habits, and it was like your brain is like your brain uses calories to do things. Like your brain is the biggest calorie hog, which is good because I really like thinking. So when I'm thinking, I think, good, I'm burning calories. But it likes to learn things and then just automate it so it doesn't have to burn as many calories. So if you've automated a habit, neither good nor bad. If you've automated a habit that is not ideal or what you want, it's going to take calories to change it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take regular practice to get out of that rut, that divot that you've created in your road. And the only way to do it is to try and build a new track, right?
Yeah.
And that's
It-
hard.
it's
Well,
hard.
it's not impossible. It just takes, and it's not even hard. I won't say hard. Hard is the wrong word. It's consistent attention,
And work.
and
Yeah,
it is work.
it's work.
But I don't
And
think, like, when I think hard, I'm like, ugh, weightlifting hard. But it's not weightlifting hard. It's just brain power hard.
yeah, and if you just keep doing consistently, like not stop looking, but perhaps take a bit of the eye off the end goal and look at the day goal. Like, okay, so today I just need to walk up a young street and just, veer off just 1 or 2 degrees off, and just at the end of the day, I'll be somewhere a little bit different. Over time, consistently keep doing that practice, you'll get somewhere different. And, I think people are really struggling because, again, there's a lot going on right now for people, and we've lost a lot of our skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have.
I like what you said about, the brain changing the patterns. I always picture this. I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland, and there was a big field close to my parents' home. And in the summer, the grass would be really, really tall. But there was a couple of paths that went right through that. It was a kind of a shortcut. And there was no grass. It was like a, beat down, muddy track.
That's totally it.
Right? But if you wanted to go, let's say, to another part of the field, you'd have to walk through the tall grass for how long to get that path?
And could you even see where you were going?
No idea. You just kind of stumble around a bit and you realize you've gone the wrong direction. You come back, and that takes even longer. But you just got to keep doing it day after day. With the training that we do at Lumen, the skill set, basically, all we ask, and the research that is based on, is 10 minutes a day, but consistently. 10 minutes a day, most days of the week. That's our little metric. 10 minutes a day, most days of the week, can start affecting a change. And I mean, Heather, one of your previous careers was you all did a lot of personal training.
I still kind of do, but
just
just
kind
on
of
the
do
side.
it. Yeah. And so, like, let's say I'm with you and you say, okay, Brian, I want you to do bicep curls, which you probably never say. You wouldn't say that to me. But let's say
I would never say that to you.
Yeah, but let's say you said, okay, let's go do some bicep curls this morning.
I want to see you do 100 crunches right now. Drop and give me
100 crunches. That's fine. And then the thing is, so later in the day when I don't know, I'm changing my car tire and I'm on my back under the car, I need to come up, I'm doing a crunch. And I could do it because of the work I did with your workout. So if you practice, like with Heather, when you're meditating, or when I'm meditating and doing my mindfulness practice in the morning for a half hour, that's the gym workout. But then later in the day, when I need to do a crunch, or I need to pay attention better to a conversation that I'm having, or I need to calm myself, those skills start showing up because I worked on them every day. And that's the beauty of, I think, a practice like mindfulness and meditation, and that it just starts showing up in your day. And all of a sudden you're
a little, sneaks in, right?
It sneaks in, and the benefits show up, and all of a sudden, the Eds and the Brads of the world are going, wow, you're a whole lot calmer, or wow, you have more perspective on things. It takes a while.
And I notice, even though I've been meditating for a long time, I'm still up each time because I do it in the morning, because if I try to do it at night, I'll fall asleep, right?
Very smart.
But when I get out of bed, I do it. And I can even notice now, wow, I handled this situation or this individual way better than I did a few years ago, because I can step out of the chitter chatter, the vritties in my brain, the little monkey mind. I can step out of it and go, have an internal conversation with myself. Why are you talking about that like that? What's making you think that? What are you thinking about that? What is this all about? While still, trying to pay attention to what was going on. But getting one of the meditation practices I used to practice was that separation. So you reminded me of this way earlier. One of the meditation practices that I sometimes do is imagining that I'm sitting and watching my mind from the outside, and I'm waiting for the next thought to show up. But in sitting and waiting for the next thought to show up, it never comes because you're sitting and waiting for it. It's like,
But that's beautiful. Like that's exactly what we're trying to do with people. I always, like I say, the analogy, or I like the analogy of get out of the parade, sit in the bleachers, watch the parade go by for a bit. Like get out of the show and just kind of
you don't
watch what's
have to join
happening.
the parade.
So, yep. What did you say earlier before we came on? Not my circus,
Not
not
my
my
circus, not my
monkeys.
monkeys.
Yeah. But so often we're down there with the monkeys, and who gets subjectivity with that? Like it's all subjective. So if you can stand back and go, oh, look at that thought pattern you just had. Holy smokes. That's where you went with that, and make decisions based on objective insight versus being emotionally wrapped up
Well,
into
and
your
we know
insight.
that you can't make a decision when you're in the thick of things. We know that you, like I posted, because I was in the countryside earlier this week. As you pointed out, I was very Downton Abbey.
Yes.
But I posted something about when you're in the forest and you're in the middle of everything that's going on, you have to pull back to see the full picture of what's happening.
Yeah.
And the hospital is not where I would recommend you do it, but pulling out of everything that's going on in your life, even for 10 minutes a day, I do 20, but I didn't start at 20. Pulling out for just to give yourself some quiet space. I read a book just recently called Do Less, Be More.
Yes, I saw. I haven't read it
Right?
yet. How was it?
It's good.
Yeah.
Just like pull yourself out of the parade, pull yourself out of the monkey pit, pull yourself out of whatever's happening for enough time so you can see what's going on and get a little perspective. And interestingly, even though I practice it, sometimes I suck at it. So I have my coach who's like standing up to the side, Heather, going, Heather, come over here, come and check it out over here, so that I can get a better perspective. He's awesome.
Yeah. Just get back on the tennis court. Keep
And
practicing.
it is, I mean, but we, like you and I both do that. It's like, it's not a skill necessarily that you weren't born necessarily with, or you have lost your sense of what it is. I think little kids are good at being alone. They don't mind. They
Yeah.
have a good old time, but you forget. And I think that's where, like, your program, I'm coaching all of these people who are trying to say, I can help support you to this thing that you're trying to get. And I always say, like, when I do my self-care program for people, it's like every single one of you is going to have a different program, because every single one of you is different and needs something different. I do the 6 aspects of wellness: physical, emotional, financial, professional, spiritual, relationships.
Nice.
So we look at all of them. I'm like, some people just need something over here to tweak. Some people need this over here. Some people need lots, but if you work on this one thing, it's going to affect all the rest of them. It's like, but I think that what you do is super important
Thank you. And
because people need it.
well, I work mostly with people like, whether it's law firms or startups or
They need it the most.
and clinics. Yeah, we just recently did some work
You
with
should go talk to some accounting firms now that
yes,
tax season is over.
Worked with a financial planning group once, and there's a lot of stress there. But I haven't done a lot of work with children. It's not my specialty, but one of my colleagues, Marcy Crawford, works mostly with kids in schools, and she goes into the schools and teaches the kids these skills, right? So can you imagine if the next generation had some of these skills where they could decrease their stress and also find entertainment and curiosity in their environment? Like, we lose it as we get older. Like watching a little baby walk for the first time, they're all full of curiosity, excitement, and enthusiasm. And we're just jaded sometimes. We
Well,
kind of
and
just,
when we were in school, kids didn't get anxiety meds.
Mhm.
I can remember when I was in corporate, one of the women that I worked with, her daughter was having anxiety attacks. And even now, I have a client who's one of her kids was having anxiety attacks as a preteen. I'm like, why would little kids be having anxiety? This is when you're supposed to be freewheeling and fun. And the worst thing you worry about is, I don't know, that boy looked at me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that boy looked at me.
Or didn't look at me,
Or didn't look
whichever
at
it
me.
is.
I know,
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah.
But it's like, Is it a resilience thing? Is it an overwhelming world thing? There's too much fire hose, too
Yeah.
much is accessible. You don't have time to grow into the person that you ultimately want to be before the pressures of life appear upon your stage. Um, oh, the poor
Yeah.
little things.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, when we were kids, we'd come home from school to a safe space, hopefully, and there were maybe some TV, there were maybe some playing, but
Homework.
basically, if school was intense, home time generally for a lot of people wasn't as intense. But now because of social media, they come home, and that pressure to be, to say, to know things is just too much for a lot of kids. So
It's
teaching
amazing that
those,
your colleague is going into the schools. So
so
good.
great. Well, I had another student in one of the classes recently. She's like 22. I think she's a university student. And it was just so nice to see her having all these little aha moments. I'm like, oh, I wish I had learned what you're learning when I was 22.
Oh
Like I
my
said, if you
God.
can stick with this, and because she was, dealing with some anxiety issues, and she had said, like, this is really calming my anxiety. Like I know now, before I could never sit for 10 minutes. I tried some of the techniques. I tried to listen to some of the apps. I couldn't do it. But now I'm learning how to sit because I'm trying to identify, okay, what part of this is, what am I seeing? What am I hearing outside? What am I hearing inside? And just kind of rotating through so that she didn't get lost in the stories that she was telling herself, that we all tell ourselves, right? That's
Right.
that negativity bias. It's pretty big.
I could have so used this in university,
I
I
know.
will say. And your program, so how long do your programs, when am I going to
Yeah.
see results,
So
Brian? No, how long are your programs? Now,
normally
are
what
they just corporate or do you have,
no, I do corporate work, but I also always have classes going on for the general public. And one just started, I guess, 2 weeks ago. The next series will be starting in September. And they're generally 8 weeks, and 8 weeks is enough time for you to, we meet once a week, and then you go away and you practice. And again, the ask here is like 10 minutes a day. Just practice 10 minutes a day. Come back the next week. Hey, how did it work for you? Very skills based. A lot of people, I think, shy away from mindfulness meditation, thinking that we're going to ask them to sit for 6 hours in a dark room staring at a candle. And
navel
while
gazing?
and while that's fantastic, I do at least a half hour a day. It's not accessible to a lot of people. So this is heavily skills based. It's the bicep curls that help you lift the water later in the day. So yeah, I love
Oh,
it. And then
do you
there's
do
some
one-on-ones for people?
yeah. So there's when the world opens up again a bit more, there'll be destination retreats, and I
Ooh.
want you to come on my first one to
I'm
Newfoundland.
I've been waiting for everything to open up again so we can go to Newfoundland and you can show me about.
We'll do it. We'll definitely do a
And I want
destination
you to
retreat
talk with your
there.
Newfie accent when we go.
That will happen. When I'm surrounded by my people, it will all happen.
I
But
know.
yeah, I do one-on-one coaching. I do, I can be sometimes clinics have asked me to come in to work with their staff, or they've come in and said, "Can you work with some of our patients?" So it depends on what's out there. It's all on the website, but I just want to get as many people. I keep saying this. I want to get as many people into the shallow end of the mindfulness pool as I can, so that people start having some skills. Some will need a baseline level and they'll stay there. Fantastic. Others will want more. Great. Learn more. But we just need to have people having some
You're the
letters.
mindfulness lifeguard. No one will drown.
That's it. I want to give people a few life preservers, and what do
Right.
you the water wings they call them?
Water
I'm gonna
wings.
I'm gonna pass out water wings. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe they have to wait till September. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't call you now.
Yes. On the website, which is their Lumen Mindfulness, you can sign up for the website. You can also reach out and have a call with me to see, like, hey, is this for me or is this not for me? Because it may not be for you, and that's fine too. Or maybe for you in 3 years' time. That's
Right.
okay as well.
Or any and I do this myself. It's like if you just want to ask some questions because you're like, I don't get it. I don't even know if this is something helpful or not.
I love those calls.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like having
Yeah.
a conversation about what it is and what isn't. And I've talked to people where I've said, I'm not the right person,
Mhm.
and referred them out because you and I have a really awesome network of people we refer to. And sometimes what they need is psychotherapy,
Yeah.
really, to be honest. And that's not in my scope. I can support them for and you can support them working on things, but if
Yeah.
they need something else to support them, then we're going to send them around. It's like when I was like, my Heather Stewart massage therapist would always send people to Dr. Brian chiropractor. You need to go see Dr. Brian.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they would come and see me, and I'm like, oh, you need to go back and see Heather because
right.
those muscles are a mess, or Heather needs to work with training issues, or yeah, there were so many beautiful moments because again, your skill set was just, you weren't just a massage therapist because of all you had that brought to the table your knowledge. So it was always easy to recommend you to patients.
And I always injured myself a lot, and I knew how to rehab it. So I'm like, I had that.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh. As I said before we got on, you and I could probably talk for hours and hours and hours. But
And normally we do. Yes.
And normally we do. But I do want to be respectful of people listening and
Yes.
respectful of you because you're awesome. And yes, call Brian, message Brian. All of the information is in show notes. I don't know whether it's above or below somewhere. There's show notes, there's connections. And definitely, like, try. I even said to someone once, just try for 2 minutes to sit.
Yeah. Start
and see what
somewhere.
happens. Start
Yeah.
somewhere. One of the
Yes.
techniques I used was starting at 100 and counting backwards. I think that's the De Silva method. You should check that one out.
I like counting up because people start panicking when they're down to like, 20. Oh my God, I'm at 10. Oh my God, I'm at 9. And they're still feeling stressed. I like to just start counting up. And you don't need to worry about
And
it.
what's funny is I actually lose track and I go, oh crap. I think I missed a number. So I'll go back to 100 and start again. But whatever feels better.
Exactly. What works for you is always the best
everybody's
answer.
different. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
My friend, thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you so much for this huge opportunity to chat with you and your people. I'm always honored to chat with you one-on-one, and this has been a huge opportunity. So thank you for the time and the interest and the great questions.
And I know we'll have more chats again soon.
Always, always, always.
All right. Have a beautiful day, my friend. Kisses for you.
Bye, everyone.
I will talk to you soon.